NTD top stories. President Trump says the U.S. won't close over a second wave of the virus. He says a functioning economy is important for people's health. The FBI says it's investigating the shooting at a Texas naval base as terrorism-related. The sailor who was injured in the attack is already doing better and is out of the hospital. Hong Kong residents fear for their freedoms after Beijing proposes a new law. U.S. Senate and House lawmakers condemn the plan. And a popular New York City restaurant is preparing to reopen this summer. The restaurant's manager is working to make virus precautions easy on customers. A Pakistan international passenger plane has crashed in the Pakistani city of Karachi. Pakistan's aviation ministry said the flight was carrying 99 passengers and 8 crew members. A Pakistan International Airlines spokesman said the pilot of the Airbus A320 airliner had made a mayday call saying he was having technical problems. The airliner came down in a busy residential area near the airport. At least 11 bodies from the scene at the Karachi plane crash have been taken to a local hospital. It's unclear if those fatalities were victims from the ground or the plane. President Trump, speaking about the needs of the people, says churches are essential. He also said people need to be allowed to work, and anyone who wants to should not be vilified. He said the health of the nation depends on getting people back to their jobs.
President Trump says CDC guidance on reopening churches is on its way and will arrive very soon. At a roundtable meeting in Michigan, speaking to African American leaders Thursday, he said he believes churches are important of the nation.
They're so important in terms of the psyche of our country. Beyond, to me, they use the word essential. I think churches are essential.
The president said he wants churches open, and the people want churches open. And this was a priority along with reopening states that have yet to open. He said governors resisting the guidelines on reopening is not good politics.
You'll break the country if you don't. And I think they look at it as a possible November question. It's not a November question. It happens to be very bad for them.
The same day, touring the Ford Rawsonville plant in Ypsilanti, the president reiterated that a long-lasting lockdown is not healthy for a state nor the country. He said it would invite a public health calamity.
Americans who need and want to return to work should not be vilified. They should be supported.
Current data shows that over 90,000 people in the U.S. have died while infected by the virus. With layoffs and business closures since the lockdown, the number applying for unemployment benefits has swelled to nearly 39 million people. The president said a functioning economy was needed to protect the health of Americans. So if opening up the economy ignites a second wave of the virus, he said he would not shut down the country, but instead put out the fire.
President Trump has ordered flags on all federal buildings and national monuments to be lowered to half-staff from today through Sunday sunset. It's in memory of those who have died from the coronavirus or CCP virus. The flags will remain at half-staff for Memorial Day on Monday. And in other news, the Chinese regime today gave details of a proposed law targeted at Hong Kong. In the U.S., reactions from both parties, with some senators saying it will lead the U.S. to rethink its relations with China.
The Chinese Communist Party on Friday proposed a new law for Hong Kong. The CCP is calling it a national security law, but residents in Hong Kong fear the law could impact their rights and freedoms. Many see it as a way to suppress pro-democracy protests following last year's clashes between citizens and police.
It is mainly caused by the police. If they can have another way or other alternative to solve this, they don't need to pass the national security laws.
He said he sees the law as an aggressive move to punish the people of Hong Kong. Others say it is not democratic.
I think that as Hong Kong is a free country, and this constant escalation is not suitable, as our degree of freedom is very high. There are those who will talk about how the government needs to improve, and now it won't be possible to talk about it.
The CCP law aims to create a legal system and enforcement mechanism targeted at supposedly defending national security, and it would be implemented without going through Hong Kong's Legislative Council. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell and Senator Ted Cruz on Thursday condemned the Chinese regime's new law. They wrote in separate statements if the law goes ahead, the U.S. would reevaluate its policy towards China. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said it was deeply alarming and yet another attempt to bring an end to the one country, two systems framework in Hong Kong. Hong Kong's final British governor, Chris Patten, says the security law is outrageous.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo reacted today, saying the legislation is a death knell for the high degree of autonomy that Beijing promised Hong Kong. And turning now to a shooting at Naval Air Station Corpus Christi, which is being investigated for terrorism. One member of the base's security force was injured and the gunman was killed.
The FBI says a shooting at a Texas naval base that wounded a sailor and left the gunman dead is being investigated as an act of terrorism. The attack began around 6 a.m. on Thursday at Naval Air Station Corpus Christi.
The subject is deceased. The scene is still being processed. We may have a potential second related person of interest at large in the community.
U.S. officials say the gunman tried to speed through a gate at the base in a vehicle and opened fire on security workers. A female sailor was shot but was able to roll over and hit a switch that raised a barrier and stopped the vehicle. The gunman was then killed in an exchange of gunfire. According to law enforcement sources, the suspect was 20-year-old Adam Asali. The U.S. Department of Justice said it would analyze electronic media found at the scene, but didn't give details. The sailor who was wounded in the attack is a member of the base's security force. The Navy says she's in good condition and has been released from the hospital. She was reportedly wearing a bulletproof vest at the time of the shooting.
The United States plans to pull out of an agreement that allows member states to fly over each other's territories to make sure they aren't preparing for war. But according to President Trump, Russia violated the agreement by not allowing the U.S. to fly over certain areas of land.
The United States announced its withdrawal from the 35-nation Open Skies Treaty on Thursday. The driving force behind the decision, Russia is violating the agreement.
I think we have a very good relationship with Russia, but Russia didn't adhere to the treaty, so until they adhere, we will pull out.
The treaty was signed in 1992 and has been active since 2002. It allows member states to make unarmed surveillance flights over each other's countries to collect data on military activities. It was designed to build trust and reduce risks that could lead to war. But according to U.S. officials, Russia has repeatedly restricted U.S. flights over Russian neighbor Georgia and its military enclave in Kaliningrad. On the other hand, they say Russia has been using its own flights over American and European territory to identify critical U.S. infrastructure, potential targets for wartime attacks.
What I can tell you is that Russia flagrantly and continuously violates its obligations under Open Skies and implements the treaty in ways that contribute to military threats against the United States and our allies and partners.
But President Trump said that the decision might not be definitive.
There's a very good chance we'll make a new agreement or do something to put that agreement back together.
But exiting the treaty might upset some members of Congress and European allies who benefit from the imagery collected by U.S. surveillance flights over Russia and Ukraine.
The Senate confirmed Congressman John Ratcliffe as President Trump's permanent Director of National Intelligence Thursday.
The nays are 44 and the nomination is confirmed.
The job puts Ratcliffe, a Texas Republican, in the center of a political firestorm over the FBI's prosecution of Michael Flynn and its Russia investigation. He will now take the place of Acting Director Richard Grenell. The director oversees 17 intelligence agencies, including the CIA, the National Security Agency, and the Department of the Treasury's Office of Intelligence and Analysis. And the Bronx Bombers may not play in the Yankee Stadium this summer, but you'll be able to see a drive-in movie in the parking lot.
While Major League Baseball's 2020 season remains up in the air, there's still a good reason to drive to the Bronx, the Uptown Drive-In. A New York hospitality group is planning to turn Yankee Stadium's largest parking lot into a drive-in movie theater. The events will range from movie screenings to stand-up comedy to karaoke. Car-side food service will be explored so that attendees won't have to line up outside their vehicles to pick up food. To promote social distancing, cars will be parked 10 feet apart, and there will be a limit to 200 vehicles for each event. Organizers hope to keep prices affordable, and first responders and healthcare workers can get in free.
Coming up, a pro-democracy local official in China was forced into a mental hospital by authorities. She was on her way to Beijing to give out leaflets appealing for democratic reforms in China after the break.
How do we get to this point? Back in December, the coronavirus was already spreading in Wuhan, and the Chinese Communist Party was covering it up and punishing the whistleblowers who dared to report the truth. Their actions led to this pandemic, which now has us, in America, stuck in our homes and losing our jobs. To this very day, the Communist Party is still lying, making it more critical than ever for us to get honest reporting about China. The Epoch Times is able to bring you the uncensored truth because we maintain a network of underground sources inside of China, hidden from the censors of the communist government. For instance, our investigative team has been contacting individual funeral homes, hospitals, and they've obtained leaked internal documents which show that China's official numbers are massively underreported by a factor of at least 10. If you're looking for an honest source of news that can keep you informed and safe, check out The Epoch Times. Go to readepoch.com and try your first month for just $1 and get real journalism delivered straight to your doorstep.
A pro-democracy Chinese official was recently forced into a mental hospital. Her daughter tried to rescue her, but was threatened by authorities to keep silent. China's annual political meetings began yesterday.
Feng Xiaoyan, a researcher for China's local legislature, the People's Congress in Linyi City, Shandong Province, has been forcibly admitted into a mental hospital. She was detained after distributing pro-democracy leaflets in Beijing on April 28th. According to an SOS letter sent out by Feng's daughter, the researcher criticized Chinese authorities' mishandling of the virus outbreak. She also appealed for democratic reforms and called for a re-election of the regime's leader. Feng was immediately arrested in Beijing. The next day, police sent her to Linyi Mental Hospital in her home city. Feng's 20-year-old daughter visited her on May 7th. Feng said she was forced to take pills each day, adding that she started to suffer from insomnia and became confused.
I cannot fall asleep. I suffer from nausea and vomiting. I told them that I was originally a healthy person, but since I came here and took your medicine, I now become like someone with mental problems.
Are you still taking the medicine now?
Yeah, I'm still taking the medicine. They won't allow it if I don't take it. If I refuse, they will pinch my nose and force me to take it.
Feng's daughter is worried about her mother's worsening health. She asked for her family members' help, but they told her being anti-Chinese Communist Party is the same as being psychotic. Feng Xiaoyan worked in Linyi City's public office for over 20 years. Due to her criticism of the Communist Party, Feng was barred from being promoted and was restricted from traveling abroad. Last October, she was detained by Chinese authorities for publicly supporting Hong Kong's pro-democracy protests. This time, Feng was detained just before China commenced its annual political meetings, the two sessions, which began on Thursday. Chinese authorities have a history of tightening control and ramping up crackdown orders on dissidents before and during the meetings. Penny Zhou, NTD News.
Unlike the U.S., some European countries, like France, haven't yet chosen if they'll allow Huawei to be part of their 5G networks. While the French government delays its decision, the Chinese tech giant is preparing to take action in other ways. Our France correspondent David Vives has the story.
French President Emmanuel Macron hasn't said if Huawei's 5G infrastructure will be allowed in France, despite the Chinese company's efforts to make it so. But while the official response is still pending, Huawei is attempting to deploy its activities in France in other ways. One way is to create partnerships with colleges and tech schools. A May report on economic warfare found that Huawei invests massively in French technology and medicine college programs.
French universities involved with Huawei usually don't openly publish information about their partnership. But we can find this information on Huawei webpage in France. Huawei says they have multiple partnerships with France's most prestigious colleges. It includes funding trips for students to Huawei's campus in China and providing student grants. This information is also confirmed in a series of web articles funded by Huawei and published in France's major newspaper, Le Figaro.
Zhang Shisong is a teacher at France's top school of technology, which appears on Huawei's list of partnerships. Song has studied the Chinese Communist Party's spy tactics in depth, as well as the link between Huawei and military programs in China. He says he worries for his students who are getting involved with Huawei.
CCP spy activities are not like anything we can imagine. A secret agent exchanging technology secrets for money like the KGB. It's more invisible, more destructive. They try to create bonds of friendship and networks, and over time, they try to manipulate people.
He asked the head of the college about the relationship between Huawei and the college. After several months of waiting, he still hasn't received an answer.
All I can do is teach my students to be vigilant, so I created a module on Chinese warfare programs.
According to Senator Gattelon, Huawei's efforts to target universities are unlikely to be a coincidence.
Huawei tries to create partnerships not just with governments, but with regional councils, city councils, and with different authorities and officials on all levels. This is a global approach.
Senator Gattelon says Huawei's moves are designed to make it ultimately impossible for France to refuse the Chinese company's infrastructure. Reporting by David Vivez, NTD News.
Up next, Cambridge University goes virtual. The UK Labour Party hardens its stance on China, and more in European news after the break.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
"90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. This is a battle between truth and deceit. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board."
The UK's opposition party is getting tougher on China, while France is insisting that carmaker Renault keep its factories offshore amid pandemic pressures. Let's hear from NTD's Neil Woodrow with the latest reports from Europe.
Hello and welcome to NTD UK, bringing you UK and European news. I'm Neil Woodrow. Cambridge University says all its large lectures will be delivered online over the next academic year because of the CCP virus. However, it is also keen to ensure its student body gets to experience an authentic Cambridge education regardless.
The University of Cambridge says it wants as many students as possible to return despite restrictions imposed by the coronavirus crisis. Graham Virgo, the university's senior pro-vice-chancellor for education, says that when students return to Cambridge, all mass lectures will be put online. Virgo says the rest of their teaching will run as normal because social distancing requirements to protect staff and students will be in place.
But crucially, the in-person education through small group teaching, and also the wider student experience is going to happen. We want the students to come back to Cambridge and get the most out of it.
Virgo says because of this, students will not feel they are following an online course. He stressed that students will continue to benefit from interaction with academic staff and their classmates, and that the university's colleges are looking into ways to maintain extracurricular activities and social spaces. The university will not pass on any additional costs for the new provision to students.
According to Universities UK, Cambridge appears to be the first UK university to replace traditional lectures for the entirety of the next academic year. Britain's Rolls-Royce plans to cut at least 9,000 jobs, or more than a sixth of its workforce due to the pandemic. The company said this week it could also close factories to adapt to a smaller aviation market. The jobs will be lost predominantly from Roll's civil aviation business, which generates over half of the company's revenue. In Switzerland, a Zurich public transport company is distributing masks to passengers during rush hour to encourage them to do their part to help prevent the spread of the virus.
Earlier this week, Zurich's public transport operator Verkehrsbetriebe Zurich distributed thousands of masks as part of an awareness campaign.
We started a campaign right from the start. For example, we have painted the trams with symbolic protective masks so that people can see that it is desirable to wear one.
Baumer said the campaign is to raise awareness that commuters should wear masks during rush hour when transport is crowded.
I think it's very important because there are people who don't care. A large number, yes, but the rest don't. I think it's important. I wear a mask in public transport always.
While the Swiss authorities have not made the wearing of face covering mandatory, wearing a mask in the metro or the tram is recommended. The UK's opposition party is urging the government to stand up to the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP's economic intimidation. Labour Party foreign policy spokesman Stephen Kinnock says the CCP is a rival to democracy and has played the UK economically. His comments suggest Labour has significantly hardened its stance towards China. Some MPs of the ruling Conservative Party are also calling on the government to stand up to the CCP. The French government says it will insist on keeping Renault production plants in France, even though the group wants to close several factories across the country.
We will be extremely committed, I would even say uncompromising, with regard to the preservation of the French sites. Renault is a global economy, but it's a French brand, obviously, and so we will be demanding.
Weakened by the pandemic, Renault is looking to close 4 factories. The historic site Flins outside Paris won't close immediately, but will stop manufacturing cars beyond the current life cycle. UK Culture Minister Oliver Dowden says some English football could be shown on free-to-air broadcasters when it returns after pausing due to coronavirus. He says current broadcasting rights holders have to be respected, but that there could be flexibility, since rules banning broadcasters from showing Saturday afternoon kickoffs would not apply. Dowden says a new task force will examine how to do just that.
Finding creative, crowd-free ways to navigate coronavirus is the biggest challenge for our recreation and leisure sectors right now.
What will eating out look like in the era of social distancing? Here's what one innovative restaurant in Rome is doing.
At the Enzo restaurant, customers scan a barcode to access the menu on their phones. This prevents the virus spreading through handheld menus. Owner Maria Chiara Di Felice says customers find it very easy and they are happy.
Finally, after 2.5 months of imprisonment, I've managed to come out, not just to go to the supermarket, but to go to the restaurant. It's a great satisfaction, and if you eat well, it's even better.
Besides the menu, chefs and waiters are wearing masks, goggles and gloves to minimize risk. And after each customer, tables and chairs also get a thorough wipe down. Di Felice says she's hoping people will trust them to take safety measures so everyone can return to living a normal life.
That's all from us in the UK for today. Till next time, back to New York.
Thank you, Neil. And in the UK, Boris Johnson's government is drawing up plans to end reliance on Chinese imports for critical supplies, including face masks and medicines. The UK is strategically dependent on the Chinese Communist regime for a number of vital goods. The UK's Foreign Secretary said last month it won't be business as usual with China after the pandemic. The move from the UK echoes the approach taken by other countries in Europe. Earlier this week, President Macron of France and the German Chancellor Angela Merkel called for greater European Union sovereignty on medical supplies. Still to come, inflatable horses raced through a senior home in Maryland after the famous Preakness Stakes was delayed. Hear from staff members working to bring residents some cheer amid the pandemic when we return. Temperature checks at the door and sanitizer-infused towels will be on the menu at Manhattan's Brooklyn Chop House when lockdown is lifted.
The Brooklyn Chop House restaurant in downtown New York City is ready to welcome back the public at a time when health precautions will be just as important as what comes out on the plate. The dining room has been outfitted with clear partitions between tables, and table settings are now wrapped in plastic. The safety measures don't stop there. The Brooklyn Chop House is going high-tech in order to reassure diners even before they enter by using temperature-reading devices, and the high-tech precautions don't stop there. Aim a smartphone at a barcode, and up pops the restaurant's menu, making paper menus a relic of the past. But in a restaurant forced to drop seating capacity from 200 to 140 due to social distancing regulations, there are still some issues that just can't be addressed by technology. So for that, the restaurant has turned to a low-tech solution.
We know that it's very hard to work with a mask. We have to speak to guests. We have to talk to guests. So with this, we created a fishing cap to make it a little fun, because I got to convince my staff to wear it. And it's actually very comfortable.
Some of the ideas are already being tested via social media. Photos of the remodeled dining room are on the restaurant's Instagram page, and so far, the response has been positive. And what about after dinner, when it's time to pay the bill and hands have been so close to the mouth? The restaurant has an answer for that too.
We always present lemongrass, fresh lemongrass we boil, we put the towels in, and you wash your hands and you smell lemongrass. Well, now it's going to have a spoonful of disinfectant.
The Brooklyn Chop House hopes all these extra touches, which will come at a cost of about $15,000, will be enough to convince the public that eating here will be safe when the dining room reopens this summer.
One senior home in Maryland is still off to the races despite the pandemic. To make up for the cancellation of a famous horse race, staff members saddled up in inflatable horse costumes to run their own version.
Put your hands together!
Residents of Brightview, Avondale, a senior living community in Bel Air, Maryland, watched staff members in inflatable costumes race through an obstacle course on Wednesday.
Today, the activities, oh my gosh, so Preakness was canceled, but we needed to do a party for our residents. They deserve to be outside, have some fun, and just release some stress.
The event was held to give residents an alternative to the postponed 145th running of the Preakness Stakes horse race. The race is held annually in Baltimore, but was delayed this year due to the pandemic.
We put together this opportunity for them to all get out, to be with each other, to re-get that vibrancy that we haven't been able to do in the interest of keeping everyone safe and healthy.
Organizers of the party said they hoped the event could get residents outside to release stress and have fun.
And that's the latest updates for now. Thanks for tuning in. Catch up again at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Tiffany Meyer.